It's August 18th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Friday's Camp David Summit. President Yoon Suk-yeol touched down in Washington, D.C. just a few hours ago ahead of a meeting up with his American and Japanese counterparts at the U.S. presidential retreat. They'll be inking the so-called Camp David principles and spirit of Camp David there. The United Nations Security Council held its first open meeting on North Korea's human rights issues in 6 years, without a North Korean representative present. China and Russia backed the North, saying that the human rights situation doesn't pose a threat to international peace and security. Chinese property developer Evergrande Group has filed for a bankruptcy in New York after borrowing heavily and defaulting on its debt in 2021. President Yoon Suk-yeol has just made it to Washington, D.C. this morning, Korea time now. That is Thursday evening there, ahead of the Camp David Summit on Friday. What will the three leaders of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo walk out with this time? Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
Just before leaving for the historical trilateral summit between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, South Korea's presidential office confirmed that the three leaders will adopt two documents to solidify the three-way cooperation. Plus, there could also be another joint statement.
As the outcomes of this summit, the leaders of three countries, South Korea, the United States, and Japan, will adopt two documents, the Camp David Principles, that will serve as a sustainable guideline for future trilateral cooperation, and the spirit of Camp David, which encompasses the vision and implementation strategies of the trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the United States, and Japan.
Expected topics included in the statements are extended deterrence of North Korea, supporting Ukraine, tackling climate change, and protecting supply chains for the three countries. As a result, specific plans could be made for joint military exercises, more consultative groups on different topics such as cybersecurity, as well as something called an early warning system to protect supply chains. The presidential office, even before the summit, showed confidence about the results.
The Camp David Summit meeting between South Korea, the United States, and Japan, which will be a focal point in pursuing freedom, peace, and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and in the Indo-Pacific region, will divide the history of trilateral security and economic cooperation among the three nations into the period before and after August 18, 2023.
This comes as the White House earlier also confirmed that in the joint statements, the three countries will set their trilateral cooperation into motion with, quote, ambitious initiatives. White House Indo-Pacific Chief Kurt Campbell also said the documents will include making three-way talks between leaders an annual occasion, along with efforts to invest in a three-way crisis hotline between. In the meantime, China has already shown its discontent with South Korea, the U.S., and Japan strengthening ties. While it's likely there will be a mention of protecting the rule-based world order and possibly peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, a Yoon administration official has said the document is not likely to issue words confronting China. As for separate bilateral meetings, President Yoon will have a one-on-one sit-down with Biden and Kishida at Camp David. The summit, which will be on Friday, will wrap up with a joint press conference in the afternoon. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And the host of the summit, U.S. President Joe Biden, has also set out for Camp David. Now, so has Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who's calling the summit a historic opportunity for their trilateral partnership. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
On Thursday local time, the White House announced that U.S. President Joe Biden has moved to Camp David ahead of the trilateral summit with South Korea and Japan. Camp David is a retreat located in the Catoctin Mountains of Maryland, which is used by President and their family as a space for both holiday and work. The White House stated that this is the first time President Biden has invited foreign leaders there, demonstrating the importance placed on the relationship with South Korea and Japan. Reuters reported that a working lunch will be scheduled to take place at the Aspen Lodge, and it might be conducted outdoors with a no-tie dress code, along with walking in the forest. Patrick Ryder, spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense, mentioned on Thursday that this meeting holds significant implications for international security. Michael McCall, the chair of the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, also praised both leaders of South Korea and Japan for expanding cooperation in the economy and defense and resolving their differences through their shared values. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said that the summit would be an opportunity to strengthen the strategic partnership of the three countries.
We see this as a historic opportunity to strengthen the strategic partnership of the three countries, building on the ever stronger bilateral relationships with the US and South Korea.
Kishida also mentioned that the specific timing of the release of wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant has not yet been decided, while the Japanese government will decide based on ensuring safety and mitigating damage. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
And cooperation on economic security issues, like establishing resilient supply chains for advanced tech industries, including chips, is expected to be a prominent topic on the agenda during the trilateral talks. Our business correspondent Lee Jae-myung tells us what to expect.
From an economic perspective, the global supply chain has emerged as one of the key agenda items for the trilateral summit between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Regarding supply chain issues affecting high-tech industries, the three countries are expected to discuss specific ways to enhance cooperation, such as sharing related information and establishing so-called early warning systems. One expert says the summit could be an opportunity for South Korea to uncover alternative supply chains of rare earth metals.
Well, Korea is currently very dependent on China for rare earth, and there is some concern that perhaps China will use that as a tool against not only Korea but the United States. So I think the United States has to be more active in trying to provide alternate sources of these rare earths to Korea so that Korea can become more independent from Chinese influence.
Measures for export controls against China are another potential key agenda item of the trilateral meeting. The U.S. prohibited the export of semiconductor production equipment to China, and Japan also joined in the chip restrictions against China. In the meantime, a one-year moratorium, which is set to expire in October, was applied to South Korean companies Samsung and SK Hynix, which are two South Korean chip makers with factories in China.
The U.S. will likely continue to push Japan to join China chip curbs. South Korea could probably receive a similar request as well. The three leaders could come up with cooperative measures on chips taking into account Seoul's chip manufacturing skills, Tokyo's manufacturing equipment and materials, and Washington's design capabilities.
Meanwhile, according to an official from Seoul's presidential office, an issue regarding U.S. investment restrictions on China will not be addressed during the trilateral talks. About a week ago, U.S. President Joe Biden signed an executive order that will prohibit some U.S. investments in China's quantum computing, advanced semiconductors, and AI sectors, and require firms investing in other tech sectors to notify the government when such deals are being done. Instead, issues such as the leaking of sensitive data related to advanced technology could be discussed during the talks. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
So we know the leaders of the three nations are set to ink at least two pacts that will do the groundwork for a new era in their trilateral cooperation. Now, they are the Camp David Principles and the Spirit of Camp David. To discuss, we're joined by Professor Kim Hyun-wook this morning. Good morning to you.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Let's first talk about the Camp David Principles. Now, they revolve around the three sides' commitment to sharpening trilateral cooperation for world peace and prosperity, which will be based on their common values. Now, it sounds quite broad. Professor Kim, please explain what this means.
Well, I think this is a pretty generic principles for trilateral cooperation, I think. As you said, it's Camp David principle. So the document itself, I think, would deal with why do we need trilateral cooperations? What is the objective? And what is the guidelines for the trilateral cooperations? So I think, as you mentioned, the document the Camp David principle, I think will pretty much include, the purpose of the trilateral cooperations like the world peace, the rule of law. Maybe they would also agree upon the principle that they object to any kind of changes of status quo by strength. And they also emphasize the importance of territories and sovereignties, things like that. So this is a principles of trilateral cooperation that will be applied to a ongoing meetings and ongoing cooperations of three countries. Why do we need it? What are the guidelines for the ongoing trilateral cooperations now and in the future? I think that will be the purpose of this document.
Right, pretty much reinstating their alliance and cooperation, focusing on their core values, mostly regional peace, global peace, and also prosperity overall, right?
Yes. Now, the White House person in the United States also mentioned that the trilateral cooperation before this summit and after this summit will be a totally different. This will be another new normal after the summit meeting. So I think they are thinking of a different type of trilateral summit, which is completely different from the past.
Sure. Now, we have one more, the spirit of Camp David, which will include their joint statement, reportedly. Now, basically ringing the bell for a new era, like you mentioned, of their trilateral partnership. How do you think they'll actually fulfill their vision of extended deterrence, joint drills, and economic security?
I think, the spirit of the Camp David document, I think, is pretty much more like a joint statement and joint statement after the summit meeting. It will pretty much include all of the things about the summit, how it came up and what are the agenda, what have been discussed in the meeting, things like that. So as you mentioned, many issues like economic security, extended deterrence, and then threats in the peninsula and threats in the Indo-Pacific region and global area. All the things I think will be dealt with. For example, there was war in Ukraine ongoing, and also the challenges coming from North Korea and China. Also, they're worrying about possible military provocations in the Taiwan Strait. How they're going to deal with the current global supply chain issues related to the high-tech industries, things like that. And another thing I think that they will focus on the document is that they will strengthen their negotiations and cooperations formats in order to guarantee the sustainability and continue in order to make the meeting to be continued in the future, regardless of the domestic political change.
Right, basically specifying their actions and measures that they will plan after the summit. Now, before we let you go, Professor, one more document is likely on the way, other than the principles and the spirit. Now, any idea what could that be?
Well, this is my personal guess, but
Right.
I think it will be about the extended deterrence, trilateral extended deterrence, because after the summit between U.S. and South Korea, they came up with creations of Nuclear Consultative Group, NCG. Japan is pretty much, asking that they can join this kind of trilateral extended deterrence. But South Korean position is that, hey, we just came up with the NCG with the United States, and we need to develop it bilaterally first before we allow Japan to join the extended deterrence amongst the three countries. But Japan is pretty much, eager to have this trilateral extended deterrence because they also are worrying about the weakening of the nuclear umbrella of the United States in this region because of Taiwan Strait contingency, because they think that Taiwan contingency is Japan contingencies because Taiwan and Japan is very close to each other, distance in distance. So I think there was some process of adjustment, and I'm not sure what kind of tone and what kind of sentences will be included if the document is agreed upon amongst the three countries this time.
Right, possibly, according to you, maybe one unextended deterrence that could pave Japan a way to be included, something like NCG.
Yeah, but
All right.
as I've mentioned, it will not be on the level of NCG, because NCG is something that has been dealt between the United States and South Korea.
Right, just the two allies. All right, we appreciate you joining us. You have a good day.
Thank you very much.
The UN Security Council held its first open meeting on North Korea's human rights in 6 years, now only to see China and Russia backing the regime by calling the topic inappropriate. South Korea pointed out the North's human rights and nuclear issues are intertwined. Lee Jae-myung reports.
The UN Security Council on Thursday convened its first open meeting on human rights in North Korea in 6 years. China expressed opposition earlier in the week, saying that a council meeting on human rights in the DPRK falls outside the council's mandate, politicizes human rights issues, and only serves to intensify confrontation and antagonism. The Chinese mission's spokesperson added that Beijing sees no added value for the council to have such a meeting and will be against it. China's deputy ambassador to the United Nations on Thursday also criticized the meeting, saying that the main responsibility of the UN Security Council is to maintain international peace and security and not to discuss human rights issues of a specific country. He added that if the UNSC discusses human rights in North Korea, it will only lead to negative results, such as heightening tensions in the region. Russia also shared its opposition to the meeting, saying that raising human rights issues with North Korea is hypocrisy on the part of the United States and its allies, as North Koreans suffered because of international sanctions against the regime. Russia's ambassador to the UN also slammed South Korea, the US, and Japan for strengthening their military power in the East Asian region. In protest, North Korea took no part in the meeting. Pyongyang's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sung-kyung called the meeting despicable and said it has nothing to do with the universal conception of human rights protection. However, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, argued that human rights issues are in fact linked to security issues.
We cannot have peace without human rights, and the DPRK is a case in point. This war machine, which stands in violation of multiple Security Council resolutions, is powered by repression and cruelty.
South Korea's ambassador to the UN, Hwang Jung-guk, also stressed the importance of human rights in North Korea, adding that such issues will ultimately endanger international peace and security as the regime uses resources that should be spent on the welfare of the people to develop nuclear weapons. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Chinese property developer Evergrande Group on Thursday filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection from creditors at a U.S. bankruptcy court in Manhattan. Now, the filings come as the group looks to provide more time to consider a fresh restructuring plan. Non-U.S. companies filed Chapter 15 to block creditors who want to file lawsuits or tie up assets in the U.S. Tianjin Holdings, a related company, also sought Chapter 15 protection on the same day. Since the real estate debt crisis unfolded in 2021, companies behind 40% of Chinese home sales have defaulted, with China Evergrande Group being the world's most heavily indebted property developer. The main opposition Democratic Party's chairman Lee Jae-myung returned home early Friday morning after 13 hours of questioning by the prosecution surrounding a land development scandal in the Baekhyun-dong neighborhood of Seongnam City. After refuting all allegations, Lee claimed the prosecution are misusing facts to draw a conclusion they already have in mind. Now, the key to investigation is finding out whether or not Lee, when serving as a mayor of Seongnam, gave favors to a private developer involved in turning the former site of the Korea Food Research Institute into apartment complexes between 2015 and 2016, including by easing requirements and zoning regulations. Now, Lee has been claiming the investigation is political and fabricated. The prosecution said the allegations were brought up and have been confirmed during the previous administration, and that the case was sent to the prosecutors after going through the police.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Israel, where officials on Thursday said that the United States approved a request for the sale of a missile defense system to Germany. The agreement, valued at $3.5 billion, is Israel's largest ever weapons deal and would see Germany obtain the Arrow-3 missile defense system. Now, the Arrow-3 system is built to intercept ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere. Tel Aviv needed Washington's approval, as the defense system was developed jointly by Israeli and U.S. organizations and agencies. Israel says it expects a final contract with Germany will be signed by the end of the year, with the system fully deployed by 2030. Germany's purchase of the system comes amid a buildup of arms among European countries following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, in Malaysia, 10 people were killed on Thursday after a small private jet crashed on a highway. All 8 people aboard the Beechcraft plane died, along with 2 motorists. The jet was traveling from Langkawi to Subang Airport on the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur and had received clearance to land. But it reportedly lost contact with air traffic control and veered off its flight path before crashing into a motorbike and a car on the highway. No emergency call was made. An investigation into the cause of the crash has been launched, and authorities are searching for the plane's black box. Now, the death toll from the devastating wildfires that hit the Hawaiian island of Maui last week continues to climb, with at least 111 confirmed dead, including children. The number is expected to rise, as many areas still need to be searched, with crews expected to comb through 2,000 destroyed homes and businesses. According to Hawaii's Governor Josh Green, over 1,000 people are still believed to be missing. The cause of the disaster has not been confirmed, but CCTV footage shows a fire starting not long after a tree fell down on power lines. The company responsible for the power lines, Hawaiian Electric, is facing criticism for not shutting the lines down during high winds, which can create dangerous fire conditions. And finally, Britney Spears' husband, Sam Asghari, has filed for divorce after 14 months of marriage. The paperwork filed on Wednesday cited irreconcilable differences between the 41-year-old pop star and a 29-year-old fitness trainer husband. It also shows that they have been separated since late July. They first met in October 2016 on the set of her Slumber Party music video and got engaged in September 2021. Asghari is also believed to have played a key role in the ending of the controversial conservatorship, which saw her father take control of Spears' personal and financial affairs.
Good morning. Today will still be hot and humid. Highs will climb into the low 30s this afternoon, with moisture in the air making it feel more uncomfortable under sunshine with a chance of rain. Parts of Gyeongsangdo provinces are already seeing rainfall, with heavy rain advisory being issued in Ulsan, and these rain clouds will gradually expand to the rest of South and will stay until Saturday. Taking a closer look, Gyeongsangdo province provinces could see more than 100 millimeters of heavy rainfall. The rest of the South and Jeju could see 10 to 60 millimeters of showers. Meanwhile, sporadic rain are in the forecast for central regions during the day with thunder and lightning. The capital had a tropical night overnight, and highs will go up higher today to 33 degrees Celsius. The rest of the country will also notice highs going slightly higher than Thursday afternoon. A chance of passing rain through next Monday, then there will be nationwide showers in the middle of next week, but they will not bring much heat relief to the country. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. Korea time.